Hi there, I'm Richard Hill, the host of eCom 1, and I'm back after handing the reins to the amazing Rowan Payne last week. Welcome to episode 178. Now, in this episode, I'll speak with Dan Temple, director and lead trainer at Cobalt Human Solutions. One of my favourite episodes in quite a while. The human side of running a business, building and supporting a team. The key to scaling, maybe, a huge part in my opinion. Now, Dan comes from managing and leading military teams in some of the toughest situations and conflicts around the world, and now brings his 22 years service to the workplace. Now, in this episode, we talk dynamics and building a strong team. We talk leadership and managing mental health, hiring and retaining your team for the long haul. Now, when things get a little bit tough, how can business owners empower their people to keep pushing forward? An absolute cracker of an episode. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now, let's head over to this fantastic episode. Hi, welcome to the podcast. Really great to see you, Dan.
Morning, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. I think I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into all things sort of performance and growth and team.
Yeah.
Before we do, I think it'd be great for you to introduce yourself to our listeners and how you got into the world of sort of high performance coaching.
Yeah.
Sort of team dynamics.
So Dan Temple did nearly 20 years in the Air Force. Most of that was on Chinook helicopters, so operating all around the world, hot, cold environments, quite kinetic. 9 tours of Afghanistan, so quite busy at times. Throughout that time, I was an instructor, trainer, and then also standards officer. And what I did was flew with people regularly, assessing sort of reporting on them, if you like, directly for the squadron commander. But within that, I really got an eye of sort of understanding why people used to call us trappers, like the squadron. If you're the standards would be the trappers coming in, that are there to catch you out, so to speak. And it's not about it's trying to understand why people do what they do, so we can then change it. Because if people are doing things wrong, it's working out why. Because ultimately, we're influencing performance. So from that, I got to human factors, understanding why we do what we do as humans, how we interact with ourselves, with equipment, with processes, that sort of stuff. And then I was invited up to Cranwell to teach up there for 3 years. I spent 3 years training people to be facilitators in HFs, human factors, and it just really grew my passion. Did a business degree within that sort of things as well, and then was selected to do an MBA at Cranfield, fully funded by the Air Force, which was brilliant. And then unfortunately my world fell apart when I was diagnosed with PTSD, so struggling quite badly with mental health. And the Air Force said, thanks very much for your 20 years, but you're no longer useful to us. They didn't quite word it like that, but this is pretty much what happened. And I had been running Cobalt Human Solutions alongside for the last year or two with a view to getting it. And it's exactly that. It's understanding why we do what we do as humans and what influences our performance. And then from that, when I left, I'm like, right, let's actually get up and running. And here I am now, chatting with you. Running the business.
Wow. Let me unpack that for a minute.
There you go. Yeah, so
I think something that, there's lots there, and I'm really excited to chat through all the different elements there and how you sort of obviously taking those learnings and all those years, in I guess, very challenging environments and situations, and bringing that to, business and the corporate world. But something there that resonates and is something on my mind is, you spent however much 20 years in the services, and ultimately you're sort of saying that, obviously some challenging times during that time and in the later years, diagnosed, about that sort of lack of support from the military at that time. Has that changed since then, you think, or?
I think when you say lack of support, I think the intent is there. Yeah. But the challenge is, and there's no secret right now, you can read about it, the retention challenges any business goes through, but certainly the military as well. The military goes through a very challenging time in terms of recruitment and retention. It's not something new. It's been happening for a number of years. Depends on who you talk to. Now, some say be careful what you say, but actually, to know what, I'll put out there that if people are listening, then they get to the answers. And with Cobalt, we look at a thing called RCP, Recognise, Cause, Prevent. So Recognise, Identify, Prevent. You need to recognise what the problem is. Then you need to identify the causal factors to prevent it happening again. Too often in business, and you see it across in the military, recognise what the problem is, right, how do we prevent it? So we're doing this, how can we stop this? We're never addressing the causal factors. So the support is there, but even then the support is not fully researched, fully funded, and fully resourced, if you like. I don't just mean financially, people. People are leaving.
Yeah.
Why they're leaving. So that then impacts on the ability for people to then go and say, do you know what? I'm struggling.
Yeah.
And then you talk about that in terms of mental health is just the mantra, just the culture that you're in.
Yeah.
And again, when the HF comes in, everything around us, the environment we're in, it's not the hot, cold, snowy.
Yeah.
It's that culture. If there's a culture of very sort of stoic, stoic's good, but also we're in the military, we're a war-fighting organisation, we need to get shit done and move on, and we haven't got time for this Gen Z, woke, snowflake generation, all the stuff that people stereotype, and then it's like, well, if we don't talk about it, we break people. Oh, we didn't break in our day. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
We still did.
Yeah.
And this is why we got suicide as one of the biggest killers of men above 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to say it's not there, I think the intent to support is there, but it maybe not. Could be as good as it could be.
I guess that translates to a lot of, the corporate world as well. Obviously, you're going through a lot more, I'm sure, extreme environments and extreme situations in the military.
Yeah, but then you say that, and this is the thing that's normalising. So what do I do? A lot of the stuff we did in the military, and this is translating to the corporate world. So people are like, well, I very often put a picture of a crashed helicopter and say, who can relate to this? And a room full of 100 legal professionals are like, well, nobody. So I'll tell the story about how it happened, the resources, the allocation, the time frame, everything that's changing over the course of a week or two, and all the parameters. And they're like, now they relate to it. Because whilst you might not be able to relate to the outcome, the process of the human emotion that we go through, that sort of things. But again, in real life, yes, I had extreme example because there's things I saw and did in my role, but there's no difference to the police. There's no difference to the fire service. The blue light service is here that every single day. So when I was deployed, we do 3-4 months at a time. Army be like, part-timers, we did 6 months at a time, but what we were doing, and we were doing it every 8-9 months. So we were going out, coming back, going out. Yes, that was extreme, but that was only for 3-4 months. The police are doing it every day. They get a strap on that body armour. The ambulance service, the fire service, they go into that. They sit ready to do that every single day. And the danger is we normalise trauma. But then you bring it right back into everyone's under pressure. You look at the VUCA world that we talk about. I mean by VUCA, so the volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. People don't know about the H, hyper-connected. This digital student know what you guys do. We are so hyper-connected, but we're actually more disconnected. And that's challenging itself. So that pressure on people to perform.
Yeah.
We talk about the monetization and all that sort of stuff. They're real-life pressures.
Yeah.
So actually, to compare a extraction from a casualty, whether it's a civilian or military casualty under contact, is really no different in a certain degree to working. You run eCom.
No, I can.
How many people have you got working for you here?
23.
23. So if you have a lean period for whatever reason, that pressure on you, I'd imagine, is quite real because this is 23 people's jobs, their lives.
Yeah.
So that has its own challenges. So that pressure that we're under, how we respond to that, I think is key to sort of translate and understand.
No, I can see the connection 100%. And I think the listeners there won't be many business owners that haven't woken up at 3 a.m. thinking about that thing that's to the outside world might be nothing. Yeah.
Really also everyone in that business, to the newest, most junior person, if you like, without sort of bringing hierarchy into it, they've got their own challenges. They're out for a job. Yeah.
So obviously you work with a lot of leaders and business owners now. What would you say, obviously your experience from the military to working with different organizations of all different sizes, and our listeners will range from, a guy selling things that, to a guy that started selling things and has now got 400 people working for him. And obviously different pressures, like we say. That first guy trying to pay his mortgage, and pay for the food for the kids, the other guy trying to find the wage bill at the end of depending on when this episode goes live, at the end of the month, we've got to find a 10 or a 400 grand or a 2 million quid wage bill. Yeah. That's that can obviously cause some serious challenges in business when we're in a challenging time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as a team of leaders within a business, what dynamics do you think make a good team?
For me, so the dynamics of the team is straight away, it's accountability and integrity. Yeah. And that's up and down and across. People talk about leadership as leadership from top down. And just because you're a leader, it's not you're in charge. You're not in a position of authority as a leader. Everyone is a leader. It's leadership about inspiration. If you're a manager, then that's a position of authority. You're responsible for things, and people aren't things. So we don't manage people. It's one of my bugbears. Yeah. Never show your tell. So we had a guy on the squadron used to say, my name's Steve Davis, but don't call me Mavis. Okay, Mavis. That was 20 years stuck. You never say that. But we don't.
So everyone called him Mavis.
Everyone's called him from there on in. Yeah, exactly. But never knew his real name actually until somebody told me that story.
Does everybody have a nickname in the military?
Not everyone. I was known as DT or Grooves because it's my name, but or Grooves because always were grooving. If Scrounger, so the Great Escape. If you wanted to know anyone, if you needed something, you go and see DT because he'll be grooving away.
You'll find the thing, sort of thing.
No, I'm always chatting to people because just being a nice person.
Yeah.
I'll go to stores. Oh, they're really horrible in stores. I never get this. Do you talk to them like an arsehole? And maybe wonder why. It'd be a decent human being. Sorry, swearing there. Just after 18 now, I'm guessing now. But the dynamics in terms of it's definitely it's accountability, integrity. It doesn't matter what level you're at. So if you hold yourself to account and just own your mistakes. Yeah. We talk about accountability versus culpability. They're two very different.
Yeah.
And people, if I'm leading a team with a project and that's gone wrong, I'm accountable for that. Yeah. It's not to say I'm to blame.
Yeah.
But I need to own that.
I'm take ownership.
That's it. So you know what? Right. What went wrong? Too often we write who did that? Why did they? Why didn't this? And it's that culpability. And we try and I hope the organisations to get out of that mindset. They might not be in it intentionally. They might not realise it, but the culture is such that. So that accountability, if you can't hold yourself to account, if I can't hold myself to account, you're not going to trust me. Yeah. And I need integrity to do that.
Yeah.
So the key fundamentals for me are integrity and accountability. And then they will develop trust.
Yeah.
Because that position or role you hold, that doesn't engender trust and respect. That's got to be earned. And the expression trust comes in on foot and leaves on a horseback. There's the expression. So for there, the dynamics, but in terms of sort of team roles, you need to make sure that the team are all. I talk about aims. So the team needs to have the sole aim. They've got to be rowing in the same direction. If people don't understand or don't know why, people think have different agendas. Well, you've got your aims, and then within that, you have your roles and responsibilities within that team. So everyone knows what they're doing and what their responsibility is. Go on, sorry.
So you make it sound very easy. So the reality.
I've been talking it for years.
And I'm like nodding along. Yeah. But I know, and I think a lot of our listeners will be like, that all sounds straightforward. Accountability, trust.
Yeah.
Treat people right. There's a bit of a problem with.
It's common sense, isn't it?
It's common sense,
but it's not.
But the reality is, you're on the cold face, of the business. You're that manager.
Yeah.
And you may be struggling, if you like, to manage that team. And if you're one of those managers listening in, what advice would you give them to do the things you just said? To something happens or something's maybe not going as it should, which is maybe a weekly occurrence in a busy business. Navigating the commercial side, the people side, and the boss is set targets for you as a manager to do X, Y, Z, but obviously in a nice way, hopefully, and not in a
sales target screaming at the board. Look at that, you're not the red light.
But ultimately the human factor of working with people, and no doubt working with an array of age groups of people, and different personal challenges within that team that they're going through, whether that's to do, all different things can be going on. What advice would you give to that, maybe that manager that's feeling quite anxious about that position?
Probably the biggest one would be look in the mirror. Generally look in the mirror and look at yourself, because too often, I've done coaching over the years, and I remember one coach, he would come in, quite a big lad, quite broad, and he'd sit there and I was so frustrated, and people didn't listen to me, and I'm in meetings and I'm giving the ideas, and then afterwards, and then I say, right, what about reflection? So I went through some, and I go away and I walk my dog and we spend about an hour and I reflect, and he wasn't reflecting what he was doing. He was convincing himself that he was right and everyone else is wrong.
Not reflecting on what that's feedback and their situation, just reflected on what am they doing, maybe what I'm asking, rather than right.
It's more so he convinced himself, his confirmation bias, so he was then looking for all evidence to support why he was right. I would say look in the mirror. Self-awareness, emotional intelligence, another key that underpins us human beings. And again, we talk about it, it sounds very simple. Well, it's simple, but it's not easy. So it might be simple, it might be. And anyone can read a book. Go and read Daniel Goleman, go and read Simon Sinek, go and read Alan Grant. The names could go on. Read the book, but you're book smart. And I call it the Good Will Hunting effect. So if you've seen the film Good Will Hunting, when Sean and Will are in the office, and Sean says to him, tell me about Renaissance art. And Will starts quoting some, and then you're talking bullshit. You see, just reading from a book. You've never been and stood in the Sistine Chapel. Anyone can read a book and talk about leadership theory until you've done it and understood. But that comes with emotional intelligence and experience. And that's where the generations in the workplace is key. Because bridging that gap, you can have 4 generations within the workplace right now. You've got that. So when you're working to maybe a boomer who has always done it this way, it was always the same, And then Gen Z like, yeah, whatever. You got the forgotten Generation X in the middle, as it like to be known as, and then the millennials in between as well.
Yeah.
So looking at that emotional intelligence is key.
Yeah.
So self-awareness.
Yeah.
True self-awareness. But then you look at self-management. Have you ever worked for a boss? I mean, you've had the business now sort of 20 plus years, haven't you? But if you remember sort of in your previous working life, you worked for a boss who was very loud and just do this and this is how it's done. And well, I'm very emotionally intelligent because I know that this is how I am and people accept it.
Yeah.
That's not emotional intelligence. That's self-aware. But where's the self-management?
Yeah.
And then where's the social awareness as to how you impact others and then how you manage those relationships.
Yeah.
So the biggest key I would say is look in the mirror and be genuinely true to yourself and then ask those questions. Because if there's a common thread, staff turnover, if you've got high staff turnover, it's not the problem with the hires, it's not the people coming in. They're not recruiting the wrong people because thousands of other businesses out there have a very low staff turnover.
Yeah.
They have a high sense of employee well-being,
Yeah.
a high engagement rate. Their employees feel valued and they're purposeful.
Because I think that's that's well. There's a lot of things there, Dan, and I think
yeah. Sorry, it's just ADHD.
No, but no, I'm like I think absolutely brilliant. I think that is quite the challenging bit. And I think you hit it on the head where having those conversations with yourself, having that reflection.
Yeah.
Because right, we're gonna do it this way, and this is that.
But I've run this business for 20 years and it's worked.
Yeah.
The outcome bias.
Yeah. And, we do it this way and that's how we do it. Hang on a minute. These guys there's people with ideas and some really good ideas. So just having a breath, having a think. I think, hang on a minute. We'll just, don't shut everything down. Yeah. Have a minute. I mean, all right. People aren't going to keep coming back to you with ideas if you're shutting them down. And then they're going to feel disconnected. Then they're going to feel, is this a place that I want to be at and stay at? And I've seen that a lot. Yeah. Some great ideas, but then maybe that dominating character. Right, this is what we're going to do, guys. But they're not really listening. Yeah. So it's having that, I think, being able to listen rather than be, right, usually the quietest person in the room. I believe a lot of people say, usually the smarter people in the room, and I am on that train completely because I know a lot of people like that. They're just uber smart, but they pick their moment, and when they speak, I flip and listen because I think, they know what they're talking about. Yeah. But it can be, as a manager, having that moment of reflection. So maybe if you're listening and thinking, right, that next time when you're sitting with your team, you're sitting there with your marketing team. Ideally wants to be very collaborative. And it's not necessarily those ideas that they're giving you. Some of them might not be great, but obviously how you then react to maybe that idea that it maybe isn't the ideal scenario. Obviously, you want to encourage them.
But how do you know it's not the ideal scenario? Just because it didn't work 6 months or 12 months ago or 2 years ago. You did that before, it didn't work. So I'm not going to do that one again. Oh, they're really going to engage again, aren't they? Why? Why didn't it work 12 months ago? What's changed? Yeah. Heraclitus was the philosopher that said that the only constant in this world is change. And he also said that no man steps from the river twice. So what does it mean by that? The fact that when you put your foot in the river and then take it out, you can put it in 2 seconds, 2 minutes, 2 years later. The river's changed and so have you. That's the rate of change. Yeah. So actually it's understanding why. Why is it different now? What has changed? Yeah. And it's very challenging. You talked about the fact that there are the pressures and people say, you come in with your idealistic views and all that. So no, I get it. I can tell you, I have worked with businesses. The previous role that I did in the other world, we were delivering force into, and that was the stuff, the pressure to deliver, to put 24 sets of boots on the ground of whether it's troops, whoever they are, to get in and get that casualty. Just one aircraft to 12 of us to get in to get that casualty out. The pressure is there.
Of course.
So you've got that real-time pressure. Yeah. But if that's all the time, that's when it becomes dangerous. If you treat people well enough, that actually when you need to dial up, they'll dial up. Without question, they'll want to do that. Yeah. If you've led them well enough, they'll join you. You shouldn't need to tell them, we need to get this done. They'll just do it.
I'm getting goosebumps, Dan, to be honest. Genuinely, it's just like that sort of treat people right. And I think that is sort of it's a simple sort of formula for success, I think. I genuinely believe treat people right. Whether you're in a war zone, and that sounds maybe the bizarrest sentence in the world, treat people right. But obviously you need a team and somebody's got to lead that team ultimately. But those people have got to want to be led or be part of that team. Yeah. And if they're not engaged, then that's going to not turn out too great. And then in a business environment, People are churning, leaving. You can't retain your staff. They're not backing the leader, the sales team, the marketing. It's all disjointed. There's chaos commercially. In time, there's going to be a failure. There's going to be people are leaving, so you've got no retention. But ultimately, commercially, the business is having a big, old tough time.
Yeah, and I think the key you just talked about there is that the different departments, but it's in time. And we focus so much on outcome, whether it's business, and everything we do is outcome. Oh, it worked really well, because when we used to land, we'd always have a debrief. Whatever went. We tend to focus on what went wrong. As everything is things, when we have a big project, if you guys have a big project here, do you ever have a debrief get together afterwards?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. You talk about, probably most I would say is what went wrong. I'm making assumptions, my apologies. But
yeah, we'll step through it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about, right, what went wrong. What went right? That went right, brilliant, okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever go across why it went right? Was it by the grace of God? Was it a bit of luck? Was it external factors? Or was it stuff that you guys and girls did really well? So you know what? We nailed that. We smashed that. Why did we smash it? Well, actually, because such and such did this. Brian was doing that. Henry was all over that. Carrie-Anne was there. The guys and girls, they did it.
Yeah.
We focus on what went wrong too often.
Yeah.
And if we don't address...
It's still good to reflect on what went wrong and obviously improve and learn from it.
Yeah.
But it's not all about that. It's then reflecting on, right, well, this 80% actually was really good, and these three guys did a brilliant job on this, so that's good. Maybe a challenge there, so remember to work with that person, help them, or that department, or that thing, or actually change that, move that, implement a new sort of check-in system so that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Put Ryan on that, because he's really detailed, and John, who maybe needs a little bit more support, and we invest in that and look at the training. And debriefing is I see a lot of firms not doing that, as from my experience. Listening to the clients and podcast guests, and quite often it's right, move on to the next, hang on a minute.
That's the commercial pressure, isn't it?
That's the churn then again. We're talking about staff churn, we're talking about client churn potentially, or staff churn. If we're not, why did we so we've let John go. Why have we let him go? What went wrong?
Yeah.
I just wanted to introduce you very quickly to our sponsors, Pricing. Now, Pricing is a competitive price tracking and monitoring software that can dynamically change a product's prices on all sales channels. They work with brands such as Samsung, Sony, Suzuki to increase their online revenue. Now, if you run Google Shopping, which I know a lot of you absolutely do, this software is absolutely key to accelerating profits. One of the reasons I recommend Pricing to my clients is because you can find out your competitors' pricing and stock availability all in one simple to understand dashboard, giving you a huge competitive advantage. Now, if you have any inquiries and questions about this software, or you're ready to get cracking, we have worked out a very, very special deal for our listeners, where you can get a free month's trial and then 25% off for the first 3 months. Head to ecom1.com pricing and complete the inquiry form, and we will connect our listeners to the Pricing team. Right, let's head straight back to the episode. So, hiring and retaining people, I think is on, it's a big part of my role, as the owner and sort of founder and leader of this business.
Yeah.
And I think, especially through COVID, massive change in working dynamics and, working from home, a lot more challenges, and I think somebody... compared it. Have you seen the Marvel film? I can't remember which one it is now, but when he clicks his finger and half the people sort of disappear.
We watched the Marvel films through lockdown, actually, because there's nothing else to do. There was, we were trying to homeschool a 4-year-old, 5-year-old.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember if I was, but
somebody compared sort of our industry to a bit like that, where obviously it's very all online when you're working in a warehouse as agencies. So a lot of people moved around, but ultimately retaining, it's a huge factor, and it's a huge profitability factor, that cost to rehire, possibly pay a recruitment firm, which is some crazy numbers potentially, and
am I right in thinking sort of annual average between sort of £12,000 to £15,000 per hire when you use recruitment?
I know somebody that got a job recently, and the recruitment firm got 60 grand for placing that person.
Wow.
So that's just one.
No, obviously it depends on the level that you're recruiting. But
it was
on average, even just I want to say a coal-face level, but you're talking thousands.
Yeah.
And in today's climate, who can afford?
So obviously retaining those people. So you're sitting in an interview, as an owner, as a listener to the podcast, you're interviewing your new marketing manager, your new head of warehouse.
Right.
What are some of the things in terms of making sure you make the right decision? I think you sort of instinctively know, but that sounds a little bit hairy-fairy. What would be some sort of structure to making, what sort of things you're looking out for in those interviews to make sure that those people are aligned? You talked a little bit about sort of your company values. How important is that?
I think it's huge. I mean, again, having not done that, and this has been my opinion based on limited experience, and talked about the goodwill hunting effect and a bit of theory there. But for me, I think you touched on it there, was that instinct,
Yeah.
I like to think I'm a reasonably good judge of character. You can tell people when somebody's bullshitting. A little bit of scratch the surface. We do.
Yeah.
I used to do a 4 to 5 hour ground check on somebody. So we do an 8 hour flying sortie together, and we do a fully assessment.
So there's a test.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Yeah. But it's a test in not a way of like testing it. It's, are you doing it right? But if not doing it right, why not?
And
if 10 people are, I was going to say, well, if 10 people aren't doing it right, that's not you as an individual. That's a problem within the culture.
Yeah.
What were you going to say? Sorry.
I was going to say, if they're not doing it right, then how receptive are they to the feedback?
Yeah.
And if they're obviously maybe a little bit confrontational, that's a big
huge. Huge. But then it's understanding why, though, because it's getting into the why they're not doing it right. Are they even aware they're not doing it right? Because we've seen it, and we go off track slightly, but it kind of ties in. We'll come back, but training schools. So sometimes, this is what we did. This you get taught during the training school. When you get in the real world, and that's how we got taught, but this is how we do it really.
Yeah.
Why is there differentiation between what's been taught and then the work is seen versus work is done? Well, the expectation is you as the boss or the leader, the owner, would be expecting, and the output is there. So therefore, what's actually happening? But going back to that point is when you scratch the surface, and when I did the flying checks, but also did the ground categorization, check of knowledge, we could spend 4 or 5 hours going through documents and documents. It's a check of their basic knowledge. They need the stuff that we need straight off the way. Can they grasp it? Because when you're in an airborne environment, 160 miles an hour, 80 feet, you can't be thinking, what documents this? Yeah,
you can't Google it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going back to days of paper maps. So we used to fly with helicopters with paper maps until 2012. So I'd have a big globe. By the time you're trying to scrunch it all together, it's a 1/4 mil map. Yeah. But you can tell when somebody asks a question, scratch the surface. So what do you understand by that then? Because parrot style, you tell me, okay, Dan, so you're interviewing me. So tell me about the eCom 1 company values. And I can parrot them to you because I've read it on the website. What do they mean to you then?
Yeah, great.
And that key question for me is when I ask questions, if I say to you like in a group, say, right, what does leadership mean?
Yeah.
People don't want to answer that question because there's a fear of, I don't look silly in front of my peers, I don't want to get the wrong answer. But I always phrase it as, what does something mean to you? Because it gives them that opportunity to...
So going in a little bit, that's a question, but then maybe another question, question within their response.
Yeah, and that's it.
Oh, well, that's interesting. So out of our values, which one is the one that really resonated with you? Oh, they can't just read that off. They've got to think.
There you go. Why does that resonate with you? And some people don't like the word why you can use. So what is it about it? You get why. So, all right. Why? And I always used to be careful of the word why and how. But so what is it about that value then that resonates so much with you? And that for me would be that you check whether people have done the research. If they want this job, they've done the research. They've looked at this. Is one thing that's changed quite a lot of the last years of hiring.
So we've layered in, some more sort of deeper questions. You've got to, I do believe that sort of connection and think, obviously there's relevant experience, but experience isn't everything. Obviously depends on the role.
Yeah.
You've got that test potentially, obviously depending on the type of business, a sort of practical test, give them a scenario, case study to talk through. So you've made the hire, guys, we've got this guy, he's insane.
Yeah, gonna smash it.
He starts on Monday, bang, he starts on Monday, and you've sold him the dream as the business owner. We know we're this is our company values are on the wall, it's the best place in the world, you're part of the team. That sounds terrible, but but ultimately they've started in the role. Now, how key, and I think it's a bit of a loaded question, but how key is that first sort of 3 to 6 months in that role, and what sort of things as a business owner should you be doing to ensure that it's a successful onboarding?
I think, where do you start really? Because if you need to, I'd be saying if you need to do something, that says more about the company. Do you know what I mean? if it's natural, if it's real,
Yeah.
if your company culture is such that people are engaged,
Yeah.
then that individual will hopefully fit in. Give them the support.
Yeah.
Give them, if they're that culture whereby if they're not sure, do they have the confidence and the I wouldn't say wherewithal, that's not the right word, but are they comfortable in saying, do you know what, like, I don't understand?
Yeah.
Because if you've got Bob from accounts who's teaching Martin, who's a newbie, Martin's got all the skills on paper, but actually when he comes in, because Bob was taught in a particular way, he's now teaching Martin this way.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this goes back to that generational bit. Well, what worked for him, because Bob got taught by Sarah and Sarah got taught by, so you're talking 10, 20 years experience. It's the Peter principle is a great example. We'll come back to that shortly, but make sure people feel valued, feel supported. They're learning. It's a learning curve, and it's quite unnerving for them. Remember your first job. I mean, obviously you've been in this company, but you imagine every new employee you get on board here.
I put donuts.
Do you?
I used to put jam in donuts. That was my first job.
Used to. What happened, Alex? Oh, you used to, right, sorry. I thought you put donuts on the table to welcome employees. I thought, can I have a job, please? Then the donuts run out. Why did the donuts run out?
As a student, I had a job in Morrison's where the donuts would come off the donut machine, and I would get them and put them into the jam machine and fill them with donuts. That was the job I actually had.
What
That's
did you
what we
do?
digress.
That's it,
I'm sure if we're going to edit that out.
Leave it in there.
Dad decide.
But it's if you've got to have and to almost just force that culture, if they're comfortable enough straight away to say, right, do you know what? I'm not sure about this.
Yeah.
Because whilst they might have it on paper, I've got loads of qualifications on my CV if you want it. There's loads of stuff I've done over the years and courses. You ask me Scrum, Lean, Agile, everybody talks about these frameworks and Lean, Six Sigma and all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, they're wonderful, but every model is wrong. I'll tell you that every model is wrong, but some are useful. And I can't remember who's quoted that as of the day, but I think that's brilliant because all the theories and these frameworks, processes, not one fits. But the point being is you might have the technical skills, but if you don't have the non-technical skills, and that's what people call soft skills. I personally don't like that term because, again, it just engenders that negative view.
Yeah.
A little bit soft and fluffy. Well, technical skills are the technical skills that your guys and girls have working that coding.
Yeah.
The non-technical skills is just looking out for each other, supporting each other.
The people piece.
That's exactly it. And if your people don't have those technical skills to support that, I don't want to say newbie, but that new employee, that new starter in the first 3-6 months, Gen Z now, they're quite, but you know what? This is not the company that I thought it was. Gone. They'll move. They don't have as many ties.
Yeah.
And you'd argue back in sort of the 70s, 80s, early 90s maybe, the way was people could buy a house on 3 times their salary. They could comfortably buy a house in 3 times.
Sounds like a dream.
I know, doesn't it? Hey, I mean, goodness, I wish. But I mean, my parents did. My parents bought a house in the late 80s.
Yeah.
On their salary.
Yeah.
And it mathematically they could do that. The standard 2 children, we had 3. I was the problem middle child, as you say. I was a feral second child that became the problem middle child, as I always tell them like this, you know what I mean? But the point being there is they'll move now. Gen Z are quite happy to move on. Yeah. That's not a bad thing. Yeah. I personally think it's a really good thing, and that's a wake up for businesses. But we tend to blame, and I see we, the elder generation, so you and I think we're both what we call experienced Gen Xers, should we call ourselves. But it's their wake up is, we don't blame Gen Z. Let's not stereotype everyone. They ask lots and lots of questions. Why are they asking so many questions? Yeah. Because actually they're keen, just as you and I were when we were young.
Yeah.
We probably wanted to ask questions, but it wasn't the culture, it wasn't the environment, it wasn't the norm to ask that question. Yeah.
Because we have a sort of thing at work in the business. More questions, the better. And I think that's I think that's a really good point, because when I'm hiring people, and we've hired them, and when they start asking lots of questions, I think, we've got a good one here. Yeah. Because they're not afraid. They're inquisitive. They're not sure. They're not stuck or blocked. Well, maybe they are, but they want to get through. Yeah. And we use a tech we use Slack. And Slack shows us, we run activity reports on Slack, on different projects to see, the comms in the projects and things like that. And I pulled a report the other week, and it was just quite amusing because one of our newer team has sent sort of twice as many messages as anybody else. Yeah. And I had a chat with her about it. It's because she wants to move through and wants to, she's inquisitive and wants to understand everything about the different things she's working on quite abroad. She's working in the sales and new business side of the business. And we sell sort of 4 or 5 different things. All those things have their own intricacies. So there's hundreds of different sort of understandings that she wants to work on. And I think, do you know what? Good on you, girl, because that is like, she's like, doo, 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 doo. And we do a fun company awards at the end of the year. And one of them was, can I ask a question? You know, who asked the most questions? And we make a thing of it, but in a light-hearted, and I think it's taken light-heartedly, you know, and we encourage, you know.
I didn't notice in she.
That's good. I mean, you were at one of our events, and I think, I'm not sure, I usually start most of our events. Obviously, we run a lot of events here at the agency and around the podcast, but, you know, we encourage questions, you know, and we appreciate different people have got different understandings. We were talking about this, you know, before we came on camera.
Yeah.
Some people are starting out on a journey.
Yep.
But they could be an absolute fantastic hire.
Yeah.
But they don't know the technicalities of, and Bob or whoever needs to teach them.
Yeah.
But then going back to that piece, Bob might not have been shown how to teach and learn and have patience. So there's quite a lot of moving parts there, isn't there?
Huge. Yeah. I think that's one of the big things as well. He says, Cobalt Human Solutions as the company is because the humans are the solution. People talk about humans are the problem. I shouldn't joke, be careful I joke. Homer Simpson said alcohol is the cause and the solution to all of life's problems. But I think humans, we are the cause and the solution because people talk about human error. Things go wrong, it's always human error. Well, that's not the cause. That's the start of the investigation, right? Yeah. Why did that human make that mistake? And everything's a why. I'm toying with the TikTok of the 40 plus 2-year-old. Because my wife's like, now we've got 2 boys, we've got an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old. Our 8-year-old was great. He asked lots of questions, which always encouraged him, he still does. But he'd explain stuff to him and he'd get it. He'd be like, okay, that's fine. But he was more like 2 or 3. Whereas Tig, our youngest, who says Irish names, is why? And it is just why? And I hadn't experienced that with the first one. Had we known that, then we wouldn't have had a second child. I think many reasons. Not joking. And even because he's got loads of long blonde hair, clearly like, a little bit jealous. But he asked why. And if we don't encourage that, the fact that your employee, she was comfortable asking, is great. So then I dig in there. We talk about that chunking. Yeah. Right? So why is she asking lots of questions? Because she wants to learn. Well, that's good. Why is she not knowing? Is it because of a lack of experience? Or you can't get them out of that? Or is it the training? Is it the training? Yeah. Are we not providing the correct training?
We can document more. We can, next to say, okay, we've learned from that. Actually, there was sort of 10 or 15 things that we can easily document with various tech or, you know, simply record with all the different tools we have and document those things.
Yeah. She's asking these questions that actually we say, well, we've got this process in place. So why is she not learned from that process? Is it the process of the problem? Is it how she was taught? Is it her understanding? Yeah. You give somebody a book, right, off you go and read that. Online learning, click, tick, done, move on. Does it work? Does it engage? How? And why? You do the 5 whys, the term why. When you get something, you ask another why, and you ask another why, and it's that deeper level you keep going down. Yeah. But again, why? You got to be careful how
you got to do it in a nicer.
Rounding back to what you said, the original question was, how do you say, if people aren't comfortable now, new generation, they'll move on. Yeah. And I think it's really, really good because it is a wake-up call for how we lead, how we look after our people.
I think that's a huge takeaway, you know, and you're obviously still with us now because you're hearing me say this, but you know, end of the day, you know, retaining people and being nice to people. I think, you know, it's simplified, but you can get so wrapped up in that commercial and, you know, and of course there's got to be, you know, we've got to have a strong element of success in a business.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean we can't do it, you know, in a nice way. And I think, you know, I've run businesses for 25 years and some of the things I've witnessed, you know, I think, geez, did that really happen? Did we really hire those people? Did we really make those mistakes? Did those really people, and me as well, you know, as a leader, you know, I think maybe a lot of our listeners as young leaders, you know, I would implore you to sort of invest time in, you know, in people like Dan and your sort of leadership team and that reflection and because to build a business, you can't do it on your own. I just don't believe you can. You can do okay, you know, and you know, there's some caveats to that. And if you get lucky with crypto 1 week or whatever, but that's, you know, BS.
So that one contract, come on, just read it.
But ultimately, you know, I think I had 40 people in my last business, you know, and it's those people piece. The people piece is the difference between, you know, maybe a lifestyle business and then a really, really successful business, you know, and nailing those. So investing in some of the things we've talked about. So I think, you know, we talked about maybe managers that might be struggling, you know, but ultimately when business is tough, You know, we've gone through maybe not quite a recession last year. Depends whose data you believe.
Statistics are about to drop, aren't they? And they're saying that at the moment, the next set, if we are below, we're not growth. Officially, 2 quarters, we're in recession.
And I remember, 2008, 2009, around that period, I had a business very, 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 very challenging times. Most challenging times in my sort of business owner career. What would you say about that in terms of, okay, this year potentially? I like to remain positive on the podcast. I'm not a fan of turning the news on, let alone reading a newspaper. If I'm honest, it's just who I am, and
I'm with you.
My circle is fairly positive. I think some people might not like that, but that's who I am, and that's how I am, and I keep.
I think you're quite realistic with it. Having the conversations we've had, I'm quite positive, and I'll try and be that.
Yeah.
People, it's positivity and it's toxic. No, it's not. It's realistic.
Yeah.
Be realistic. You can be real, but obviously you don't have to follow that negative narrative. Go on to what you were saying.
So how can business owners sort of empower and sort of fire up their team to keep pushing through maybe a challenging time?
Yeah. I was called in. I did a video last year on LinkedIn, and I talk about perspective. And I had a big white sheet, the A2, the flip chart, and I had a little dot. So, right, what do you see? So people see the dot, they don't see all around it. They don't see all the good and the positivity around. We tend to focus on the potentially negative bit in the middle. What is the problem potentially? And it's to talk about hire, and I'll tell you about Jack and Jill and Bill and Ben in a second. Remind me if I don't. But the point is, it's where we look at it. So a company saw this, a sales director, he's got about 70, 80 people under him. It's part of a multi-million-pound company, production company, manufacturer. And they asked me to come in and have a chat with the sales teams. Now, they're doing very well. They did very well last year. They missed their target by 2%, which actually equates to just under £2 million. I'll let you do the maths. It's just fairly big. He said the team is performing really, really well. But how do we just that little bit extra, that marginal gain, as Matthew Seidel will talk about, those little bits, because they're incremental. So when in not being negative, what is it? And it's just finding out where the team's values are. What is it what motivates them? People aren't always extremely motivated by money and finances.
Yeah.
That's your basic level. If you pay people enough, it's a little bit more. So what intrinsically motivates people? The common aim goes back to that bit earlier on about the aim. If everyone's pulling the same direction, they know what the outcome, what they want to achieve.
Yeah.
It's not about focusing on the outcome. Have an eye on that. How you get to that. And how you get to that is through your roles and responsibilities. Does everyone know what they're doing? Who's responsible? Who's accountable? Then you look at the processes and procedures. Are they in place? Are they correct? Are they fit for purpose? Are people being supported? If the system's not working, you're failing. You're already pushing it. It's causing frustration. People then get frustrated. People just ignore, they lash, whatever, they argue. And then the last bit is the people themselves. You focus on those. The human is the solution. I talk about it. And what we do is we go in and we help businesses get the solutions out of their people.
Yeah.
Now, it might not be a problem. Looking ahead, any business owner, bit of horizon scanning and looking ahead and see what's forecasting. You can't see everything. Things don't come from left field. And it's, where did that come from? Well, maybe Putin invading. I don't know, discuss. Somebody knew somewhere, but in the rest of the world, the impact. But as soon as that happened, if you're in that business, you can see things.
Yeah.
Another one, I talk about accountability, culpability. I talk about identification and acknowledgement. We can identify, we can see things. Don't want to touch them. We just put it up. So if we open that box, shit's going to happen. So we'll just leave it. Oh, it's not affecting. It's not impacting. That's good.
Yeah.
So in answer to your question, it's sort of looking at the team. Is everyone aligned? Everyone know what they're doing? Does everyone know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Does everyone know how they're doing it?
Yeah.
And is everyone happy and supported and motivated to do it? And if you keep those 4 key elements within, you'll get through. And I think understanding and having that open environment, that psychology safe to us, right, this is the challenge, this is what ahead, what thoughts have we got?
Yeah.
The person who never speaks, they just kind of say, what about this?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think that comes from ultimately a strong leader.
Yeah.
And imparting that vision to the team. So, sometimes there may well be, tough conversations to have when things maybe aren't going right, and been open, honest.
Find out why.
Getting buy-in, and saying, look, guys, it's no secret that we lost the order last month and the sales on X is down and we've got 300 grand sat in the warehouse of such and such, but there's a new model out. Yeah. But what we need to do, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
So any ideas are good ideas. Potentially,
Yeah.
really want us to, as a team,
Yeah.
getting the key management, or depending on obviously on the size of the business, it might be the whole company together, or and working together, getting that buy-in, showing that as a leader, your sort of passion and determination to get through this time.
Yeah.
We're not alone. It's no secret. Turn the TV on. Things are X, Y, Z. We'll turn the TV off and but definitely 20 years in, and of course there's a lot of shit I've dealt with.
There is. I can imagine. I can imagine. Especially the digital changes. When you look at the digital revolution that we've gone through and accelerated by COVID and other factors.
Yeah.
I think the key with that is, you talked about, it's just again, it's that why. Find out the why. If you've lost the order and there's 300 grand in there, don't go, right, we've lost this order, we've got this in there.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? People are going to really engage. I think, I've got this idea. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But actually, it's okay, right? We've lost the order. Okay, so let's dissect what, not why or not who, and let's look at what happened. Okay, what can we do within? And if people are covering their tracks, that in itself is something that, again, when you dig down that little deeper, the next why. Why are they covering their tracks? Why are they not comfortable of being responsible, accountable, rather than thinking they're culpable? There's a fear that there's going to be an unjust consequence. Well, you lost the order, 300 grand it's cost us, so we're going to sack you, off you go. Okay, you might have saved yourself 30 grand salary, but actually what that individual brings to the business in tacit knowledge and ideas and thoughts and support for the team, you've probably just lost. And actually they could have had the solution. So rather than blaming somebody, look at the process. Was it fit? Was it working? Okay, and then that's going to be key, is finding out why, what.
And I think that thing where what if this, we won't look at that. And there's a book I read called "Obstacle is the Way."
Right.
Ultimately, what if? Let's get that thing. Let's bring it over here. Let's put it on the table. And let's get our collective minds right. Okay. Now, the trajectory at the moment is actually pretty poor. But we're not going to think about it. No, we are. We're going to grab that, whether that's our forecast.
That elephant that's there, the winking ass in the corner.
4 months, we've got no money left. We've got no cash left. We've got warehouse full of stock. We're going to have 400 grand due. We're fucked, So hang on a minute. Let's grab it, stick it on the table. Let's figure it out. What we're going to do. What we're going to do is ultimately, there's terms. Can we renegotiate terms? We have a couple of suppliers. And fix that short-term cash flow. We've dealt with these guys for 20 years, 10 years. They know we're good payers. But if we just have an honest conversation, maybe with a couple of suppliers that we're close to, or that ones that we feel we can, or a couple of team members where we need to do X, Y, Z, or we know that particular line is a challenge and there's 300 grand. So what are we going to do to get rid of it? Let's get everybody on it. We can't just give it away. We've got to pay for it. Okay, so Jack and Jill, Bill and Ben. What's that all about?
People always ask that. It's a story about, and it comes down to team dynamics, and something you mentioned earlier on about when things are lean, when the team's working, and if they're not maybe working, as asking the why. And very often you find, if you're in a business, you've got a team of 10, but you've only got 6 for whatever reason, and it's the militaries and public sector is a great example of, we focus on the 4 that we haven't got as opposed to 6 we have got. And we spend all our time looking at those 4 people that we haven't got there. Well, actually, let's focus on the 6 we have, look after these 6, and in the background, we work on that 4. We look at why we haven't got the 4, why people leaving, is it a culture thing? But Jack and Jill, Bill and Ben, if you've got a team of 5 or 6, let's say it's a team of 5, regardless of, that's a team complement that you've got. If you go less than that, you're screwed. So say you've got 5, whatever, 10, whatever. You've got Jack and Jill are awesome. They're amazing. They do everything. You know that when things go wrong, you can give it to Jack and Jill, you can give it and it will get done. You've got Brian, who's middle of the road, never going to set the world alight, and I don't mean in an arson way, they're steady, they're good, they're trustworthy. And then you've got Bill and Ben, and you wonder how they put their socks on every day. You wonder how they get to work, let alone how they've got through school. You've hired them, the recruitment agency, you blame it, whatever. But they're just not performing. So if you like the problem children, you talked about like the bell curve.
The
problem, the 80% is fine, but the 10% at the top and the bottom. Don't think about the 10% at the top and the underperformers. And then you say, what happens is, so you've got Jack and Jill, they're burning out because shit's getting real. Things are business. The corporate world is.
So the top 10.
Doug, the top, they are your top 10. All of the stuff you need, all the projects, you're giving it to them. What's going to happen to them? They're going to burn out. So when you lose Jack, you're left with Jill. Jill's picking up the slack. She's already on the edge of a tether. You've got Brian, who's just steady along the radar there, but you're spending all your time with Bill and Ben because you're doing that. So there's your problem. You're already depleting when you should have had that.
Yeah.
So we talk about it, say, right, get Jack and Jill to work with Bill and Ben. It's very simplistic. Again, it's simple, might not be easy. Why not
work with?
This is it. So you're empowering these, so they feel comfortable. They feel like they're being empowered. Jack and Jill are achieving, and then you work with Brian. So everyone is working with each other. Everyone's empowered. You're getting them team dynamics.
Leveling up.
And this is it. You're leveling up in a way.
Yeah.
Now, again, it goes back to when there are times where you need Jack and Jill to step up, and they will do. But if they're always doing it, that's poor management.
Yeah.
We're not managing our teams effectively. We're not leading our teams effectively. We're not allocating the right time to the right people. So that's what I mean by Jack and Jill, Bill and Ben is how you lead that team, how you get that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think, and that's where, somebody that's maybe struggling, obviously is getting that support. So then they feel that they know the company's invested in them and somebody within the business is helping them and getting that support. Obviously, they're more likely to stay with the business and be an asset, and, it's so easy to go, right, get rid of those people, but hang on a minute. Just hang on a minute. Is just going to keep doing that? Keep doing that. Doing that. Who wants to work there? But
ask the question.
Going to reflect. Why did they get rid of John? Oh, he made a mistake on such and such. Well, we could have sorted that out.
My wife's recently taken over as assistant head of one of the schools in Lincoln, so one of the special education needs school, and she was up against 7 other candidates for assistant head. My wife was not on the leadership team, but she went in, and all the candidates went in, and part of the interview was to look at, right, how are you going to affect positive change over the next 3 to 4 years? So a lot of them, I believe there's conversations about the school improvement plan, what the school vision, strategy, all that. And Paula went in and we had this conversation because of my leadership background, banging on about it again, here he goes. So what's the key element? What is the key driver for your business? It's your people. The shareholders and all that stuff, that's the output. That's if you don't focus on your people, the customer's not always right, your employee's always right. If you don't look after your employees, they're going to deliver a shit product or they're just not going to deliver because they're going to go.
Yeah.
She went in focusing on the people. Right, how are we going to go? Talking about number of staff. People, if you're advertising for roles, people aren't applying. Why are people not applying? Because your staff aren't going out there. The military is a great example, bang on about it again, but if people aren't going down the pub when they go home at the weekend and telling their mates about what a cracking job, they love their job, they get to do this, we do that, we go away, camaraderie, all that stuff supported, the learning, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
People, if they go down and tell how shit it is and how they get talked to like this, this is that and that.
Which is half the people down the pub.
Well, this is it. This is it.
Get a good day at work. No.
Yeah, no.
Bloody John again.
And I went to the boss and he was a bit of a dick and he just shot me down and I come with ideas in the meetings and honestly,
they never implement it.
I'm going to leave and no, your mates aren't going to go.
This is shit place to work.
There you go. So there's your culture. But if you've got people queuing up out your door to come and work for your organisation, there's your indicator. Leading, lagging indicates whether you're looking at. There are lots of leading indicators.
Love it.
We choose not to look at them because we identify but acknowledge Pandora's box, all the good stuff, these analogies.
Yeah.
So David Brent there, is there all these analogies going in? But that for me is a standout there.
So last couple of questions, Dan. I've loved our chat. So I think we could do a 3-hour episode.
Keep me on track. Good luck with that one.
We're gonna get Dan involved with a lot more of our events. I can see it.
Yeah, I think I'd love to.
I'm loving this chat. I think it's just so important, guys, because as leaders, business owners, listening to this, your people piece, people first.
Yeah.
You're maybe so busy thinking about hitting whether it's 100 or 1,000 consignments a day and the orders and the cash and the da. But without those people, you haven't got anything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
the solutions within your business, they lie within your people.
So I love the analogy of Jack and Jill and Bill and Ben.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
pick any characters, by the way. Anyone you like, just easy for me to remember.
I like it. But what sort of springs to mind is ultimately, okay, we're going to support certain people within the team that need support, but when it comes to maybe more of the sort of mental health side of things, where people, it's not maybe a case they can't do the spreadsheet thing and the technical and the physical thing. They're just really having a challenging time for whether there's obviously that's quite a broad mental health. Is a very broad sort of topic, but ultimately, sometimes people are just having a tough time.
Yeah.
And as a leader, stroke manager of that person. What advice would you give to them about trying to help or what maybe they could do to try and help somebody that's really struggling with their mental health?
Yeah. I think the first one is just before you try and do anything, is just set the environment that they feel comfortable enough to say they're struggling. Because if the first time, if they don't come to you and say, look, Rob or Dan, I'm struggling, it's like a case of, Rob, well, that we haven't set that environment in the first place.
Yeah.
If it's recognised from the lagging indicator, the fact that the performance is dipping, there's things going on, you're noticing it because you know your team really well, that everyone or somebody says to you, look, I'm a bit concerned about Mike, he doesn't seem to be on his game, or he just doesn't seem himself.
Yeah.
Knowing your team is key first. That's the leadership relevant for anything. Know your team and make sure that they know that you trust them and feel they can trust you. If you haven't got that environment, first off, key. However, something's come up now, somebody has highlighted to you in one form or another. First thing to do is acknowledge them and just say, well done, thank you. Having that confidence to speak up.
For
being comfortable.
being able to talk to me about it. We want to help, and
And assuming they have to, because if somebody else has come to you, you need to be able to go and have a chat. But even if you can't, again, go back to that mirror. If there's a consistent trend, it's not everyone else in the team that's the problem. You know what I mean? So again, it's first off acknowledge and just thank them and say, well done. And then just chat to them about it. Don't try and solve it. Have you tried mindfulness? Yeah. Why? Yeah, I've tried everything. I don't know, but maybe not. Being flippant, it's like my worst expression I ever hear is, I know what you're going through. Yeah. So what, you mean?
Oh, yeah, and they talk about them.
Yeah.
And hang on a minute.
Yeah. Are you me? Yeah. You and I can go out here now and we can witness the worst accident. Some idiot coming down Silver Street or whatever. We could see the same thing. Afterwards, I wouldn't say to you, I know what you're going through because I saw the same thing. With different people, we respond in different ways to different reactions.
Different experiences for our lives.
This is it.
Triggers.
Exactly. Yeah. You'd expect me to be on the floor crying my eyes out with PTSD. People joke about it. I shouldn't, but that the expectation, the stereotypical, whatever the soap, I hate soap, but there you go. Sometimes I've seen years ago, there was a character on one of them and he had PTSD. And within 6 months, he was all fixed and he's never spoken about it again. And that's a soap drama I get. But the point being is, when you see the same things, we are all different. So actually, just acknowledge them and listen to them. You said it earlier on, listen. Absolute key. Listen, and then listen some more. Ask your questions based on what they say. Maybe not the words they say, but maybe what they're talking about. Try and extrapolate. Listen to what they're saying, how you're feeling. What is it? Okay, can I ask you? Be polite. Don't be interrogative, but and just say, look, what can I do to support? And then look at what options are available. Signpost. Give them that support and just make sure that they are comfortable, that they can tell you when it's going wrong. And we talked about it on about Gen Z and, Gen Z's so woke and snowflake and all. Well, actually, no, they're just a bit more open.
Yeah, totally, isn't it? Yeah.
And they are a bit more open. Back in the day, you and I imagine our dads, when I've ever done my dad said, Dad, I'm going, man up, shut up, whatever it's that. We're a bit more open.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of flashing back to, my first business 25 years ago. I think I set up my first business and the things, the way that we dealt with certain situations, I wouldn't say I'm ashamed of it, but I would say, wow, gosh, it's just so not acceptable, that.
But the times have changed, haven't they?
And I think it's probably just been able to talk about things, right? You say sort of, we don't do this, and we talk about, come on, just get on with it, that sort of mentality. And I think, you just can't be like that. I'm so determined to sort of to preach that in my business and to preach that on the podcast and, look after your people, make sure everyone's okay. But of course, somebody's going to have something going on in their lives, whether that's, all sorts of different things.
Exactly.
And we see it. So it's having that environment in your business where they feel they can talk about it, which is the first thing. But that's a massive, massive, massive step for an individual to have a conversation in a work environment about something that's very, 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 very personal to them.
Yeah.
So be able to have that conversation, but then as a manager, owner, somebody in that business, to hopefully have the skills. It's whether, more businesses definitely need to sort of invest in that mental health training, and that's quite a label, but we could talk about that maybe on a separate episode. But well, Dan, it's been an absolute flipping pleasure.
Brilliant. No, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. To recommend to our listeners.
So I heard about this, and I was going to be cheeky and ask for 2 recommendations, but I won't. What I'll do is I'll give you a recommendation, And then I'd like to read you a passage from one of my favourite books, if I may. Just a few lines. The book recommendation I would say is a book called The Starfish and the Spider by Rob Beckstrom and Ori Braffman. So you're aware that octopuses, they can actually segregate their own leg. They can chop their own leg off in a time of need of stuff, or if somebody pulls up, like chops them, if they get attacked, they can separate their leg. And that leg they would regenerate another leg. And the reason is it's a safety thing there. But there's also a breed of starfish that actually, when you chop that leg off that starfish, that leg will regenerate into another starfish, and the starfish will have its own leg. Exactly. So you end up with this moving around. But then the spider, so think about this in a business analogy. A spider, a business, a core, you've got your core function, you've got this core leadership at the middle, and you've got your 8 legs. You've got sales, you've got marketing. I always like to say to sales and marketing, you're the same thing, aren't you? Just watching. They crinkle. You've got sales, you've got marketing, you've got logistics, you've got HR that everyone blames when everything goes wrong. It's always HR's fault. And you've got your different sections, these different legs. If you pull a leg off, the business is going to carry on, but might limp a little bit, might struggle. Pull another leg off, it's really going to start to struggle, because all the core centralized leadership, the functions are in the middle, if you like, the management. Whereas in a starfish, every leg has got its own, so you can do that.
Yeah.
It talks about decentralized leadership. It goes back to think about the Apache Indians and how they hammered when the Spanish invaded, went over the border into Nevada. They took Mexico and they went up north and they got hammered because the Indians, the way they were decentralized. They moved around. Al Qaeda, when you look at ISIS now, careful how political we go, but it's how they're operating. They have that decentralized function. People say about businesses, well, you can't have that. You've got to have an element of both.
Yeah.
So in the hierarchical sense, you have people who are responsible and accountable. Doesn't mean to say that everyone else is not. And if you lose somebody, you lose that linchpin or that middle, that core bit.
Yeah.
You've got.
Yeah.
I love it, and I read it a couple of times now. I used it for my studies, and I just think it really sets a scene. And I would implore anyone, any business owner, manager, leader, or just anyone's a leader. The newest, most junior person in your business is a leader.
We'll get it on the list. We'll get it on the list on the show notes of this episode. If you're listening, go to the ecom1.com / for the podcast, the episode, and we'll tag that up. I'll get it ordered. So by the time you listen to this, I will have consumed. Sounds fantastic. Did you want to read something out?
Yes.
Yeah.
I talked about children, and I think one of the big things, I put a post on LinkedIn the other day about book recommendations, and somebody said about in the military, staff officers will quote from their staff courses about how to get better, and it's all the leadership. So one of my favourite books I'll give to you is Oh, the Places You'll Go. I carry it around with me, genuinely I do, because I think it's just one of the most fantastic books ever. Our son absolutely loves it, our eldest son. And there's 2 bits I'm going to read from the start. And he talks about the start. He said, if your brain's in your head, your feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know. And you are the guy who'll decide where to go. Now, that's an opening paragraph for me. That's just like really sets that scene about it. And at the very end of it, he talks about, I love a bit of Dr. Seuss. He says, so, be your name Buxbaum or Bixby or Bray, or Mordecai Ali Van Allen O'Shea. You're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting. Get on your way.
Wow. Are these the books you read to your children?
Well, my 8-year-old, he reads to me now. Yeah. He's beyond a bit beyond Dr. Seuss, but we've got the full collection, and I'm looking forward when the 2-year-old. We read it with him. Again, at the moment, he likes to eat them rather than read them, but we'll get there.
That sounds fantastic. I think my kids are a bit older now, and I send them very similar, different but similar motivational Instagram reels most mornings. So I know when they wake up, they've got a positive. Yeah. I'll be like, go get it, son. And it's, they're sort of, and I send them out every other day. I'll send one to each son. So they wake up to something that's like, come on.
But it's that, like you said, it's going that simple. But then when you talk about VUCA, that hyper-connected, there's so much going on. The world is so busy. Yeah. Talk about the news and look, the proliferation of news, how many news channels we've got, papers, all that sort of stuff. So, let's go back to basics.
Well, Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Richard,
for those that want to find out more about you, more about Cobalt, what's the best way to do that?
So info@cobalths.co.uk. Look me up, Dan Temple, on LinkedIn. You can't miss me. Upside down head, nice and shiny, and just networking Lincoln. Love getting out and about. Everyone knows me for my trousers. So I was disappointed today.
I know.
I
did let you down. I do feel like
I just thought there's not very often I get to clash with in the trouser front. But
So me and Dan met about 3 weeks ago at one of our events here in Lincoln in the UK, and I had my bright orange trousers on. And Dan was like, "Yo, what?"
I had my mustard cores, didn't I? My mustard cores out
yeah, and Dan's coming with the red pair today, and I've just gone pretty straight denim. So, well, Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Looking forward to doing this again.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah,
thank you for keeping up. And my bangers really
kept me on my toes.
I tell you what, yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast. You're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.